أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين الغرر الميامين المظلومين، سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، سيدنا وإمام زماننا وصاحب نعمتنا وولي أمرنا، مهدي هذه الأمة وطاووس أهل الجنة، الحجة بن الحسن العسكري، فداه أرواح العالمين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. For the hastening of the reappearance and the return of the Master, the Savior, the Avenger, the Imam of the time, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the most shining attributes, the hallmarks of the characters of the companions of Imam al-Hussein, was the fact that they were certain and firm in their belief and their mission. The determination you find is mesmerizing, to say the least. Prior to coming to Karbala, there were people who deserted Imam al-Hussein. When news of the murder of Muslim ibn Aqil reached the camp of Imam al-Hussein on his way to Kufa, there were many people who left him. Along the way, there were those who had a different concoction, a different conception of what Imam al-Hussein was trying to do. Some of whom might have joined him thinking that the Imam is going to take the reins of power from Yazid. And so he's going to need people in top government positions. And that's why they joined the Imam. Others might have joined him for different reasons. And so when the going went tough and things became apparent that the Imam's mission was as he stipulated when he was in Mecca, he declared openly and clearly in no ambiguous terms, كأني بأوصالي تقطعها عسلان الفلوات بين النواويس وكربلاء. The Imam said that I can see the moment when the wild beasts of the desert will tear my limbs apart. And so some people left the Imam. The filtration had to happen, just as it's happening today. Prior to the return of the 12th Imam, God's proof and vicegerent, there's a process of filtration and a process of distillation that is happening. Those whose beliefs and whose creed and whose determination is tarnished, you see them moving away from the path of the Ahlul Bayt, abandoning their beliefs. But on the day of Ashura, and even beginning with the eve of Ashura until the end of the calamity, no one deserted Imam al-Hussein. None of the companions left him. Why? Because Imam al-Hussein was left with only the best of the best. Even in the face of unspeakable aggression and violence, they were undeterred. And the reason for that is because their beliefs were firm. They had absolute certainty. The ones who were left with Imam al-Hussein had unquestionable loyalty to him. And this is something that you see even prior to the day of Ashura in these individuals. I'll give you a couple of examples. When Muslim ibn Aqil, who was the Imam's cousin, brother-in-law, and his emissary to the people of Kufa, when he went there, people gathered around him and he read out the letter of Imam al-Hussein to them. إِنِّي بَاعِثٌ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي وَابْنَ عَمِّي. I have sent to you my brother and my cousin and the most loyal in my family, Muslim ibn Aqil. People started crying. You can imagine the Imam's letter being read out by his special envoy. فَبَكَى النَّاسِ. Abbas ibn Shabib, or Abbas ibn Abi Shabib al-Shakiri, who later on became one of the most legendary martyrs of Karbala, stood up. And he addressed Muslim ibn Aqil. Listen to what he said to him. He said to him, إِنِّي لَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ وَلَا أُحَدِّثُكَ بِمَا فِي صُدُورِهِمْ. I don't know about these people. They're crying. They're expressing solidarity. I don't know what's going on in their hearts. وَلَكِنِّي أُخْبِرُكَ عَنْ نَفْسِي وَاللَّهِ لَأُجِيبَنَّكُمْ إِذَا دَعَوْتُمْ. Now that you have called on to us, by God I shall respond. وَلَا أُقَاتِلَنَّ عَدُوَّكُمْ مَعَكُمْ. And I will fight your enemies alongside you. وَلَا أَضْرِبَنَّ بِسَيْفِي هَذَا دُونَكُمْ. And I will wield my sword and fight while protecting you. لا أطلب بذلك غير ما عند الله. And I do all that and I expect nothing from you. All I want is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with me. And so on the day of Ashura, when Abbas ibn Abi Shabib advances towards the enemy flocks away from him like a horde of goats, fearing his wrath and fearing his valor, to the point where they begin to pelt him with stones. And he is forced to take off the shield, the helmet, and even tear off his clothes in order to distract them from advancing towards the camp of Imam al-Hussein, saying, "Come and get me." You're not surprised. You know who this person is. You know his determination in the face of evil and on the path towards righteousness. This is one example. The other is Abu Thumama as-Sa'idi, or as some have said, as-Saydawi. Abu Thumama was the person who's now labeled as Shaheed al-Salat, the martyr of prayer. What an impeccable title to be given to someone. He went to Imam al-Hussein. He said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, نفسي لك الفداء. May my soul be ransomed for you. Not just my body, but my soul. إني لأرى هؤلاء القوم قد اقتربوا منك. I see these people advancing and getting closer to you. لا والله حتى أقتل دونك. By God, you won't die until I die before you. Over my dead body. لا والله لا تقتل حتى أقتل دونك. وإني أحب أن ألقى الله تعالى وقد صليت هذه الصلاة التي قد دنا وقتها. And I wish to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having prayed this prayer whose time has just begun. Imam al-Hussein raised his blessed head towards this heaven and he said, نعم قد ذكرت الصلاة جعلك الله من المصلين والذاكرين هذا وقتها أو هذا أول وقتها. The Imam said, may Allah make you among those who uphold prayer and are in constant remembrance. Yes, this is its time. You see these people, their determination, their steadfastness, their firmness is truly the stuff of legends. And so this attribute of them radiated in Karbala. On the other hand, you have people like Shabath ibn Rab'ee. On the day of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein delivered multiple sermons. One of them was where the Imam addressed the enemy and said the following. Listen carefully. He said, عَلَامَ تُقَاتِلُونِ. Why are you fighting me? Think about this for a moment. What brings you here? With the intent of shedding my blood and the blood of my family members. Why? What is it that drives your decision? لِقَتِيلٍ مِّنْكُمْ قَتَلْتُهُ. Have I killed someone among you and you're trying to avenge his death? أَوْ لِمَالٍ إِسْتَهْلَكْتُهُ. Have I taken hold of your possessions? Have I usurped any money and you want to take it back? What is it that brings you here? فَأَقْبَلُوا لَا يُحَدِّثُونَ. No one responded to the Imam. They had no legitimate excuse in any way, shape, or form. So then the Imam addressed specific individuals. He mentioned people by name. Who were those people? The Imam said, يَا شَبَثَ ابْنَ رَبْعِي وَيَا حَجَّاجَ ابْنَ الْأَبْجَرِ وَيَا قَيْسِ ابْنَ الْأَشْعَثِ. He mentioned them by name. أَلَمْ تَكْتُبُوا إِلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ قَدْ أَيْنَعَتِ الثِّمَارِ وَأَقْبِلْ عَلَى جُنْدٍ لَكَ مُجَنَّدًا. Did you, specific individuals, not write to me telling me that you should come? You have an army waiting for you. We are at your beck and call. Did you not do that? These people responded to the Imam saying, لا لم نفعل. No, we never did. So the Imam said to him, بل فعلتم والله. Yes, you did. You know that you did. On the eve of Ashura, before I go back to Shabath ibn Rab'ee, Imam al-Hussein invited them. He said, come, let's talk. One of the signs and hallmarks of the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt was that they never initiated a battle. They always tried to reason with the other side. Amir al-Mu'mineen stayed with his army as they faced off with the army of Muawiyah and Siffin. Some have said the Imam tried to advise them against engaging in this battle for a month. 1 month. The battle then took another 3 months time. But a whole month was devoted to trying to reason with them, advise them. The intention of the Prophet and his successors was ultimately to guide people. It wasn't to kill them, even though it's Ali ibn Abi Talib we're talking about. So the Imam sent a message. Come, let's talk. Let's negotiate. Let's see what your reasons are. And so there was a bit of chatter among the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Well, why don't we talk to him? Let's see what he has to say. Umar ibn Sa'd was forced to oblige and to respond to the Imam. So he picked someone who was a tribal chief, someone notable. He said to him, I want you to go and debate with him, to talk to him, negotiate. He said, no, I can't go. Umar ibn Sa'd said, why? He said, because I was one of the people who wrote to him. How do I face him when I told him, come and we'll support you? I can't. He said, well, how about you go? Pointing to someone else. Once again, he said, I also wrote to him. He said that to multiple people and they all said that we wrote to him. How can we face a man that we invited to come and then we turned around and fought him? Eventually somebody said, I'll go. He got up. He went towards the camp of Imam al-Hussein. He entered the camp. He fell to the Imam's feet, kissing them, saying, Ya Aba Abdullah, I was just waiting for a moment, an excuse to leave their camp and come and join you. So the Imam makes this address. He says, Ya Shabath ibn Rab'ee and his cohorts, did you not write to me? Who was Shabath ibn Rab'ee? If I were to describe him in a few words, I would say that this man was so unstable that you cannot even count the number of times he switched allegiances. A brief bio of this person. He started out in the time of the Holy Prophet, supposedly became Muslim, though he was living in Basra. So he wasn't in Medina, no one counts him as a companion, even using the loose definition of companion. He didn't make the cut because he was in Basra, but he was there in the time of the Prophet. People converted, he became a Muslim. Then as soon as the Prophet died, a man by the name of Musaylam al-Kadhab announced that he was a prophet. Alongside Musaylama, you've probably heard his name, but alongside Musaylama, a woman by the name of Sujah also claimed that she was a prophet after Rasulullah. When they told her, how could you be a prophet? The Prophet has said, La nabiyya ba'di. There is no prophet after me. She said, yes. He said, La nabiyya ba'di. In the masculine form. He never said, La nabiyya ba'di. Which is such a pathetic cop-out. The Prophet, yanfil jins. The Prophet is saying there is no prophet. Male, female, trans, whatever it is. All the rainbow colors. No prophet after me. End of discussion. But she declared that she was a prophetess. Who joined her? Shabath ibn Rab'ee. So went from being a Muslim to being a follower of this false prophetess. Not only did he join her, but he became her mu'adhin. Not just someone who calls to salat, but also like a spokesperson. So later on, there were negotiations between Sujah and Musaylama to join forces. You know how these people are, right? Al-kufru millatun wahida. They often cooperate, they work with each other in tandem, unlike many of us. The negotiations that occurred between Musaylama and Sujah, the person speaking on behalf of Sujah was Shabath ibn Rab'ee. Eventually, Sujah and Musaylama got married. And Musaylama announced that the dowry of Sujah was that he will give people a discount and they no longer have to pray Salat al-Fajr. That's how you win people over, right? Give them discounts. Or like the group that issued a statement saying that hijab is not wajib anymore. The more discounts you give, the more imbeciles you attract. The more people say, oh wow, what a beautiful religion. Times are tough. Modern days, it's really hard to stay a Muslim. And so give them discounts, give them concessions so that they might join you. Hijab is not wajib all of a sudden. The one thing that is unanimously accepted by every Muslim is not wajib according to some guy who studied in the Hawza for 3 years. So Shabath ibn Rab'ee became one of the cohorts, one of the supporters of Sujah. Then fast forward until the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When the Imam became the apparent Khalifa, Shabath ibn Rab'ee initially refused to join the Imam in his battle of Jamal. he refused. He chose to sit this one out. Like Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and others. Oh, this is fitna, we don't want to get involved. Then when the Imam emerged victorious and won the battle, now his dominion, his kingdom was established. When the Imam went to fight with Muawiyah, Shabath ibn Rab'ee decided to join Amir al-Mu'mineen. Not because he believed in the Imam, but once again, there might be other ulterior motives involved. It might be the fact that it's trending, everybody's joining the Imam, let's join him as well. He's the head of state, why not? Or because he wants a piece of the cake. So he joins Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Battle of Siffin. In Siffin, when Amr ibn al-As concocted the story of raising the Quran upon the spears, the Imam said, this is a decoy, this is a deception. Don't fall for this. If they're raising copies of the Quran, أنا القرآن الناطق. I am the speaking Quran. I know the Quran better than any of you. But of course, they pressured the Imam to accept the negotiations, and they, in fact, threatened to kill the Imam. The Khawarij, who later on they turned against Amir al-Mu'mineen, initially threatened to kill him, which is why the Imam had to summon Malik al-Ashtar and other top commanders back, even though they were so close to ending the battle and killing Muawiyah and his posse. So they came back. The camp of Muawiyah, again, the deception spearheaded by Amr ibn al-As was that we should now engage in negotiations. When the negotiations fell apart and Amr ibn al-As appointed Muawiyah, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, being not just the imbecile that he was, not just the idiot that he was, but he was always someone who despised Amir al-Mu'mineen. Even though Amir al-Mu'mineen said, don't send this man. If you're going to engage in negotiations, send Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. He knows how to deal with these people. He knows how to negotiate. But they insisted that Abu Musa al-Ash'ari should go. Why Abu Musa al-Ash'ari? Because he was from Kufa. And because they were from Kufa, they thought that the negotiations, if they lead to Ali ibn Abi Talib winning or somehow taking control of part of the Muslim land, we'll get something out of it because Abu Musa was our top negotiator. When Abu Musa was exposed to be the fraud that he was, and Amr ibn al-As appointed Muawiyah, then they came to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why did you let Abu Musa al-Ash'ari go? The Imam said, I didn't. I said, send Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. You are the ones who refused. So, a new faction was created, the Khawarij. The Khawarij, they turned their swords and spears and armor against Amir al-Mu'mineen and declared war against him. Who was with them now? You can guess. Shabath ibn Rab'ee. You see the oscillations? You see jumping, how he jumps from one branch to another, from one tree to another? So he joined the Khawarij. Amir al-Mu'mineen, before going to Nahrawan, he sent Abdullah ibn al-Abbas to try and reason with them once again before the war broke out. He went, he spoke to them, he addressed them. Some of them were confused, some of them were just plain stupid. Ultimately, some of them defected from the Khawarij, from the Kharijites. One of those people was Shabath ibn Rab'ee. Again, you lose count of how many times this person switched allegiances. How many times this person went from one extreme to another. And so he came back. Then, during the time of Imam al-Hasan, he said that I will join you. The problem was that he was the chief of his tribe, Bani Tamim. And he was a notable person in Basra. And so his decisions and his allegiances, they mattered. A lot of people followed him. They took him as their leader. Eventually, he was one of the people who wrote to Imam al-Hussein. Why did he write to the Imam? Because while he was with Bani Umayyah, he then felt that Bani Umayyah moved the center of government to Sham, and Kufa ended up being just a distant province, and the notable personalities of Kufa, of whom he considers himself, they didn't get anything. And so he felt that he now needed to switch allegiance to Imam al-Hussein so that he might get something. If the Imam was able to defeat Yazid, he'll get something out of it. The rest of the list that I read out to you were exactly the same. Subhanallah, you read their history, they keep jumping from one side to another. This, my dear brothers and sisters, is one of the hallmarks of people who lack certainty, faith, belief, and therefore will never succeed. They will never be on the right side of history. There are those today who say that we should follow the Kantian method, that we should also go from doubt to certainty, from certainty to doubt, which is nothing but a load of rubbish. The Quranic narrative says that once you discover the truth, you hold firmly to it. You don't doubt the truth that you've already acquired. In other words, listen to what the Quran says. Rabbana, in Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana. Oh Allah, do not make our hearts sway and deviate from you after you have guided us. In other words, you should exert every effort to reach certainty. After that, hold on to it. When you see someone who keeps changing their views, when somebody, be it a scholar, speaker, friend, relative, it doesn't matter. When you find that they're oscillating from one side to another, every day they have a new opinion. One day they're pro this, the next day they're anti that. One day they subscribe to a particular group, then they become antagonistic and hateful towards that same group. And they keep on jumping from side to side. That is a sign of a lack of belief, a sign that they lack certainty, which means that this cycle will continue until they do something truly terrible and heinous, which was exactly the case with the likes of Shabath ibn Rab'ee. The Quran says you have to build your beliefs based on foundations of certainty. You can't have doubts. Yes, if you have any doubts, if you have those nagging doubts inside your heart, you need to address them. If you know that you are on the side of falsehood, you should try and rectify that. You should try and remedy this. Find what the truth is. No one is saying that, God forbid, if someone is a deviant, that they should hold on to their deviation. A lot of times, there is strength in saying that this is wrong, and I shouldn't follow this path because it leads me to damnation and deviation. If you're ever in that position, you should have the strength to say that this is wrong, I'm going to fix it. A lot of times, even in our social interactions, people are too arrogant to say that they're sorry. So many marriages fall apart because the husband or the wife or both, they're not willing to apologize for a mistake that they've made. The arrogance, the hubris compels them to stand firm on the side of falsehood. So if you ever find yourself in that position, simply apologize. Say you're sorry. That word goes a long way. Let alone when it comes to matters of belief. Let alone when it comes to the bigger existential questions of life. What's right and what's wrong. If you find that you're taking a position that is contrary to divine values, be brave enough to say, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. But when you find the truth, then build upon it. Don't go back to doubt. Doubt is something that's abhorred in our religion. Certainty is praised in our faith, in the language of the Quran, the culture of the Quran. So this idea that we should doubt everything so that we could then rebuild. No such thing is found anywhere in the Quran. All the verses are against this concept. Ibn Abi al-Awja was a famous atheist in the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, but he used to be a Muslim and he studied under Al-Hasan al-Basri. Al-Hasan al-Basri was a mystic-like figure, someone who was close to the government, pretended to be holy and knowledgeable and so forth, and was a master plagiarizer. Someone who stole from the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen. A lot of the ahadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen, when you search for them online, you'll find that in the Khulafa school, those same words are attributed to Hasan al-Basri. Deep, incredible, insightful words of wisdom attributed to Hasan al-Basri, even though they belong to Amir al-Mu'mineen. So master plagiarizer, a con man of the highest caliber. Ibn Abi al-Awja, whose name was Abdul Karim, was a student of Hasan al-Basri. When he announced that he was an atheist and he had abandoned Islam, they told him, why? You were a Muslim. You studied under Hasan al-Basri, this great sage. He said, look, Hasan al-Basri was always oscillating from one side to another. He was deeply unstable in his views. One day, he would preach determinism, the idea that everything we do has been predetermined and that our actions are coerced. The next day, he would preach free will. And so he was very unstable. And I knew for a fact that this person couldn't possibly bring me close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I began with these doubts, and the doubts led to me becoming an atheist. It is pivotal, brothers and sisters, that we acquaint ourselves with our beliefs, with our aqa'id, and that we do so using the proper channels. The reason we have so much confusion in this day and age is, number one, the so-called proliferation of knowledge. The fact that you have so much information out there, and yet that's only led to more and more confusion. The only way you can defend yourself against deviant beliefs is to plant yourself firmly in your own, in divine beliefs and ethics and jurisprudence. You need to have a strong foundation. And the way to do that is to study. Ask scholars. Read their books of aqa'id and creed, the fundamental beliefs. Read them. During the time of the Imams, scholars of the highest caliber, companions of the Imams, they would come to them, present their beliefs to them. When was the last time you heard somebody do this? I do apologize, my brothers and sisters. They're asking if you could just come a little closer to the minbar, inshallah, to make room for those joining us now. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Any space you can make will help brothers and sisters to join in the commemoration of Abil Fadl al-Abbas tonight. It's a special night. Let's accommodate everyone. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Ahsantum, jazakum Allah khair. May Imam al-Hussein reward you. When was the last time you did this or you heard someone else do this? To go to a qualified scholar and say, these are my beliefs. This is what I have been told is the truth. I would like you to verify. I would like you to listen to them and tell me whether I'm right or wrong. Read books of aqa'id, as I said. Our scholars, especially the most supreme jurists, the maraja', oftentimes they include a chapter on aqa'id in their manual of Islamic laws, in the Risala. I know of at least 3 maraja' who have done this. Late Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim, rahmatullah alayh, Sheikh Wahid al-Khurasani and Sayyid Muhammad Taqi al-Mudarrisi, at the very beginning of their Risala, there's an entire chapter which tells you these are our beliefs. Start there. Once you've established the foundation, then you can build upon it. It's like a pyramid. And you build on top until you have a coherent and complete system of belief, so that the next time someone throws a misconception in your way, you don't falter. You don't shake. As Amir al-Mu'mineen said to one of his companions, he said, تَزُولُ الْجِبَالُ وَلَا تَزُولُ. You're such a person that the mountains will be raised to the ground before you shake. الْمُؤْمِنْ كَالْجَبَلِ الرَّاسِخِ لا تحركه العواصف. A believer is like someone who has an unshakable belief, like a mountain. No cyclone, no wind, nothing can shake it, nothing can move it. Have you seen how sometimes in some countries they might experience an earthquake, and so you see the extent of the damage, the debris, all the buildings that have fallen down, and then you see a tree in the midst of the rubble. You see there's a tree and it hasn't moved an inch. Why do you think that is? Because that tree has planted deep roots into the ground. They extend meters and meters, and so no earthquake can shake it. If you have a firm foundation, especially knowing your aqa'id, I said this to the sisters just today. I said, if somebody asked you, why are you a Muslim? Why do you believe in Allah, in a creator? How many of us have an answer to that? Not to respond to other people, not to engage in polemics, but an answer for me, to satisfy me. Why do I believe in God? Why do I believe in Rasulullah and the Prophet? Why do I believe in Amir al-Mu'mineen? Why believe in the 12th Imam? Do we have answers to these? If not, then we're on shaky grounds, brothers and sisters. This building's about to fall, and it will fall. Rest assured. The people who will try to plant seeds of doubt are everywhere. They're omnipresent. So, ask scholars, read books, educate yourself. That's number one. Number two, the way to avoid this unstable nature of the enemies of Imam al-Hussein is that you do not associate the truth to individuals. As Amir al-Mu'mineen said in the battle of Jamal, when a person came to him saying, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I see you here and I see great companions with you, but when I look at the other camp, I see the wife of Rasulullah, I see the cousin of Rasulullah, I see people who are also good and they were close to the Prophet. The Imam said to him, listen carefully. إِنَّ الْحَقَّ لَا يُعْرَفُ بِالرِّجَالِ اعرف الحق تعرف أهله. The truth isn't measured by the standard set by people. You don't know what the truth is based on who belongs in what camp. Know the truth, you will then identify the people who stand by the truth. For someone to play this name-throwing game, which is something that happens all the time. Oh, but if this concept is wrong, which you talked about on the pulpit, but what about this scholar and that scholar? I said, listen, I know how to play this game. And we can go on forever. We'll never reach a conclusion. You'll throw a list of 10 names, I'll throw a list of 20 names. But then what? What you're doing is exactly what Amir al-Mu'mineen is warning us against. Do not measure the truth by individuals. These individuals could be reputable, respectable. We don't have a problem with that. But even those individuals that you're citing as proof of your allegiance, even they wouldn't want you to follow them blindly. Am I wrong? The grandest of scholars, they don't want you to follow them blindly. They don't want you to simply follow them because they happen to fall into this camp or that camp. They need you to know why you believe in what you believe. إِنَّ الْحَقَّ لَا يُعْرَفُ بِالرِّجَالِ. Once you've established the truth and found it, then you're able to make that evaluation. You're able to make those judgments. Who's with the truth? Who's against the truth? and then deal with them accordingly. So bear these 2 points in mind. Now come to the camp of Imam al-Hussein. The greatest of those who defended Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the day of Ashura was Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Imam al-Sadiq, when asked about Abu al-Fadl, he explained what made him so special. It wasn't just the fact that he was a brave warrior. It wasn't just the fact that when he headed towards the Euphrates, facing a force of 4,000 men, according to some reports, 6,000, all alone. He killed 80 of them in his pursuit of the water. It wasn't any of that. The Imam says the following, listen carefully. He says, كان العباس عليه السلام نافذ البصيرة صلب الإيمان جاهد مع أخيه الحسين عليه السلام وأبلى بلاء حسنا. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas had the kind of insight. Insight is the ability to see through the clouds of doubt and misconception. He had an insight that penetrated any doubt that came his way. نافذ البصيرة صلب الإيمان. His faith was solid. His determination unshakable. He struggled and performed jihad with his brother Imam al-Hussein. وَأَبْلَى بَلَاءً حَسَنًا. And he went through those trials and came out victorious. So strong, in fact, was the faith of Abbas alayhi salam that when Shimr ibn al-Jawshan came to him with a document saying that you have immunity, that you get to leave. If you don't fight, you're allowed to walk free. We won't kill you. Initially, Shimr called out, أين بنو أختنا? Where are my nephews? Because there was kinship. There was a family relationship between al-Banin al-Kilabiyya and Shimr ibn al-Jawshan. Al-Abbas was seated next to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Did not utter a word, didn't respond. Shimr called out once again, أين بنو أختنا? Al-Abbas didn't respond. The Imam said to him, أجيبوه ولو كان كافرا. Respond to him, see what he has to say. Imam al-Hussein knows what's going to happen. He wants everyone to see just how solid and unshakable Abbas was. So he went to him, he said, what do you want? He said, I bear good news. I was able to secure a document that says you and your brothers are immune. You have indemnity, you have impunity. You're allowed to walk free. Great news. Abbas responds to him by saying, لعنك الله ولعن أمانك. May the curses of God be upon you and your immunity. أتؤمننا وابن بنت رسول الله لا أمان له. You wish to give me immunity when the son of the daughter of Rasulullah has no immunity, has no safety. Get away from my face. Some have said that Shimr tried this trick twice, not once. For obvious reasons, because they knew who Abbas was. They were trying to get him out of the equation so they don't have to face him in the battlefield. This is how unshakable he was. Some have said that on the eve of Ashura, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was out guarding the tents of Imam al-Hussein on the back of his horse, ensuring the enemy doesn't draw near, when at that moment he saw a shadow. Identify yourself. Who are you? He heard the voice of his sister Zainab. Akhi Abu al-Fadl, it's me. I'd like to speak with you. As soon as Abbas heard his sister's voice, he tried to disembark from his horse. She said to him, no, إنه أقر لعيني. I want to see you on the back of your horse. It brings delight to my eyes. She came to him. She said to him, Akhi Aba al-Fadl, tomorrow's the day, you know that. I want to share a story with you. He said to her, لَقَدْ حَلَى وَقْتُ الْكَلَامِ. How beautiful is it that I get to speak to my sister. Tell me, what bothers you? She said to him, when our father wanted to get married, he said to his brother Aqil, خِرْلِي إِمْرَأَةً أَوْلَدَتْهَا الْفُحُولَةُ مِنَ الْعَرَبِ. I'm looking from a woman that hails from a family of brave warriors. So he married your mother Ummul Baneen to bring you into this world so that you could make a stand tomorrow on the day of Ashura. When Abbas heard this, he pushed his foot into the stirrup of the horse. He wielded his sword and said, أَتُشَجِّعِينَنِي وَأَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ تَعْرِفِينَ. Sister, you're encouraging me when you know I am the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Wallahi لَأَنْعُمَنَّكِ عَيْنَا. I will make you proud tomorrow. And so on the day of Ashura, when everyone had been killed, remember when Ali al-Akbar came and asked permission to go, Imam al-Hussein gave him permission, and as painful as that was, Imam al-Hussein still had Abbas, he still had Qasim, he still had his brothers. But when Abil Fadl al-Abbas came, he was Hussein's one-man army. He came to Aba Abdullah, Akhi, Sayyidi, لقد ضاق صدري من هؤلاء المنافقين. I feel this pressure on my heart. I don't wish to live in this world anymore. هل لي من رخصة? Will you give me permission to go and fight? Imam al-Hussein immediately began to cry. He said to him, أخي أبا الفضل أنت حامل لواي. You are my standard bearer. وأنت كبش كتيبتي. إن أنت ذهبت, if you go, my entire army will crumble. Abil Fadl al-Abbas then, not having received permission from the Imam, he went to the enemy. He advised them, he counseled them. He said, why would you do this to the son of Rasulullah? They didn't listen to him. Then he came back. Some have said that he went into a tent that used to house the water containers, which had all been emptied, but there was some moisture left on the ground. He saw the children wiping their faces against the sand. Every time I go to the shrine of Abil Fadl al-Abbas, I don't know, this is how I feel. It's as though I can hear echoes of the children saying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Abil Fadl al-Abbas hears the cries of the children but doesn't do anything. He went back to Imam al-Hussein. He said to him, let me go, Ya Aba Abdullah. The Imam said to him, إن كان ولا بد فاطلب لهؤلاء الأطفال شربة من الماء. Go and get water for these children. The Imam didn't send him to fight, even though you would think the commander of the army of Aba Abdullah should have gone to fight, but this is what the Imam wanted of him. And so with complete submission, Abul Fadl hoisted the flag atop his helmet. He then took the water container. He embarked on his horse. He headed towards the enemy camp. 4,000 men guarding the river Euphrates intercepted his path. Aywa Abbas. لا أرهب الموت إذا الموت رقى حتى أوارى في المصاليت لقى إني أنا العباس أغدو بالثقة نفسي لنفس المصطفى الطهر وقى. I am here to bring water and defend Aba Abdullah. He headed towards them. He fought them off. They ran from him like a flock of goats until he reached the water. He dipped his hand into the stream. The enemy might have been chatting and speaking to each other, saying, if Abbas quenches his thirst, it will be the end of us. When they saw, to their surprise, Abbas threw the water back into the river. He didn't drink a drop of it. He simply filled the water container. He then headed back to his horse. يا نفس من بعد الحسين هوني وبعده ما كنت أو تكوني هذا حسين وارد المنون وتشربين بارد المعين. بالفضل العباس headed back to the camp. أجركم الله يا مؤمنين. Imam al-Hussein is waiting to hear from his brother. There is a lot of dust, swords clamoring, arrows being shot. Abu Abdullah is waiting to hear from his brother. At one point he heard Abbas say, Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini inni uhami abadan an dini wa an imam sadiq al-yaqini. In other words, he is saying, Ya Abu Abdullah, I will defend you to the death, but you should know they cut off my right arm. A few seconds after that, Imam Hussein heard his brother say, something happened. He heard him say, Ya nafsu la takhshay min al-kuffari وأبشري برحمة الجبار قد قطعوا ببغيهم يساري. Abul Fadl al-Abbas continued on his mission back to the camp. Umar ibn Sa'd said, shoot him with your arrows. One arrow found its mark on the water container. Another arrow was planted in his eye. رحم الله من نادى وعباسا وغريبا. Abbas was trying to pull out the arrow from his eye. He lowered his head. The helmet fell. A man came from behind. He hit him across the head with an iron pole. عمد الحديد بكربلاء خسف القمر. He called out, Akhi, Adrik Akhak. Brother, come to my rescue. Abu Abdullah rushed to him. They ran away from him. The Imam kept telling them, إلى أين تذهبون وقد قتلتم أخي. إلى أين تفرون وقد كسرتم ظهري. The Imam rushed to his brother. When he reached him, he looked at Abbas. يداه مقطوعتان والسهم نابت في عينه. The Imam sat next to his brother Abbas. The Imam then said, أخي أبا الفضل الآن انكسر ظهري وقلت حيلتي وشمت بي عدوي. My enemy has now rejoiced. Why? Because they surrounded Abu Abdullah, clapping and screaming and cheering. لقد قتلنا العباس. Imam al-Hussein then went back to the camp. But how? وكان يكفكف دموعه بكمه. The Imam's back had been bent. He was wiping the tears with his sleeve. As soon as Zainab saw him, she knew what had happened. She screamed, Wa Abbasa, wa ضيعتنا بعدك. We are lost after you. Imam al-Hussein then echoed this statement. He said, Wa ضيعتنا بعدك يا أبا الفضل. وويلي على العباس 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 وويلي على العباس. Some have said when Imam al-Hussein reached his brother Abbas, he had no eyes to see with. He didn't recognize Abu Abdullah. He thought it was an enemy combatant who had come to kill him. So he said to him, أقسم عليك بمن تعبد. I swear upon whoever you worship to spare me until my brother reaches me. Abu Abdullah embraced him saying, أخي أبا الفضل أنا أخوك الحسين. The Imam embraced him. Some have reported that the Imam took his head and placed it in his lap, but Abbas removed his head and put it back on the ground. The Imam helped his head once again back into his lap, but Abbas removed it again. The Imam said to him, why do you do this, my brother? He said, Ya Aba Abdullah, I am now dying, and you are next to me, comforting me, looking after me. But who will comfort you when you fall onto the ground? That's loyalty. That's loyalty. Who will comfort you at the point of death? Well, let me tell you, Ya Aba al-Fadl al-Abbas, what happened when Abu Abdullah was all alone. Imam al-Hussein opened his eyes. فرأى الشمر جالس على صدره. Hussein! Say it 3 times, Hussein!